And now we have our first guest. We have Kim Scouller. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nancy. It's great to be here.
Thank you. And we had some good dialogue before the show. You know, the Green Room always has a lot of good dialogue. But tell people who you are. You are a financial expert.
Well, I'm a financial professional, and I'm an advocate for women in particular and financial literacy. So I've actually been a lawyer for more than 30 years, almost 35 years, and worked as an attorney in the financial services industry for much of that time. I ended up serving as president of one of the largest broker-dealers in the United States, and when I looked around the room, I was the only female in the room. And so it really spoke to me about how women need a voice. Women really need to feel like they've got access to financial services and access to financial education. So when I left the corporate side, I started my own law firm here in Atlanta, Jade Law Offices, and my own financial business, reaching out to men and women, but women in particular.
Okay, so one of the things we know, this October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we were talking about how so many women who are caught in that cycle, and even men, because men are also sometimes domestic violence in that cycle as well. But how do you help them? Because sometimes they feel trapped. So what do you do? What are some things you've done in the past to kind of help those individuals?
So as we talked about, 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in her life. And 99% of those women will also be victims of financial abuse. And as you said, men also can be victims of domestic violence and financial abuse. But there are a lot of things that women and men can do to prevent getting in a situation like that, or maybe getting out of a situation like that if they don't find out until, they're deep in it, especially if they have children. So among the things that we recommend for victims is first that they start talking about the issue. They start talking with their trusted friends and family members, maybe, people they know at their church, so that they can find out what support and resources are out there to help them maybe in their relationship, or to get out of their relationship, or to help their children. Next, we want men and women to learn how money works. It's so important. We talked about this. It's not taught in schools. Right now, only 21 out of 50 states require one course in personal finance taught at the high school level.
Really? 21 out of 50?
21 out of 50 states.
Now, is Georgia one of those states?
Unfortunately, it's not.
Wow.
I know. So it's not our fault that we don't know how money works, but it is our responsibility to get that information. And, there are a lot of financial institutions and financial professionals out there that want you to think it's rocket science, but it's really not. It comes down to some very basic financial concepts. And then we recommend that victims in these abusive relationships to get out, to start putting a personal financial safety plan in place, stashing the cash, setting up a secret bank account, setting up a secret credit card, maybe with a P.O. box address or the address of a trusted friend, and just put money away as you can. Tap into those local and church resources, community resources that are out there to help.
Because I think the interesting thing is that as we talked about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, money management was certainly not taught.
No, it wasn't.
I mean, you watch, however you were raised, whatever was how your parents handled money was how you learned to handle money.
Right.
And so if your parents were spenders, you became a spender. If your parents were those who saved, sometimes you would be one who would be a saver. But I just remember as we were talking when I was in college, going to college, it was a wonderful thing to be at college and be going on scholarship. But, you get your first credit card, you're like, yes, I got my credit cards. I'm excited.
I know.
So, you go and use a $300 limit. Oh, that's really good when you're in college.
Yeah.
Oh, I can really do some damage.
Right.
So you go spend, then you got to pay for it.
Right.
when it comes back. It's like, so you learn the hard way sometimes about how not to do things. But now there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of resources, to your point, a lot of tools to help people learn how to handle money better.
Right.
And more importantly, how to be a good steward of it, because God wants us to be a good steward of what he gives us. And then how to begin the process of changing sometimes a generational cycle of living paycheck to paycheck.
Well, that's exactly right. You know, we do learn about money from a young age from our parents or whoever raised us. And if they were spenders or savers, or if they lived paycheck to paycheck, that's what we learned. And unfortunately, that's what we then start teaching our own children. So that mindset about money is passed down generation to generation. By, you know, empowering people with financial knowledge, they can break that cycle, help their family and future generations to come.
So how do you begin the process of teaching women and sometimes men some of the basic concepts of money management? So let's say some basic concepts, some fundamentals of money management. What are some things you teach them?
So we teach basically 3 financial concepts and 7 money milestones.
Okay.
The 3 financial concepts that we focus on are about understanding about compound interest and how that actually works. And then for young people in particular, understanding the high cost of waiting. If, you know, young people put off, you know, for their retirement or their future financial goals, but if they start setting money aside early, even if it's a small amount, and they continue to do that on a regular basis, they build that habit, by the time they are ready to reach their financial goal or their retirement or whatever it is, they put aside enough money to take care of that. The third financial concept we teach is the only math that I'll talk to people about. Because, you know, when I talk about math, a lot of
times, oh my goodness, people are like, okay, math, please, please.
Especially women. But the only math I'll ask people to understand is a simple thing called the rule of 72. Now, the rule of 72 is you take the number 72, it's always 72. You divide it by your interest rate, and that will tell you the number of years it will take you to double your money. So if you're, say you have your money in the bank and it's earning 1%, most banks aren't paying 1%.
No, they're not.
But say it's earning 1%.
Right.
72 divided by 1 is 72.
Yes, it is.
So your money sitting in the bank is going to double in 72 years. I mean, you'll be retired by the time your money doubles. So if you just put that interest rate in, for example, say you're earning 6%. 72 divided by 6 is 12. So every 12 years, your money is going to double. So that's the only math you need to know. Now, look at your bank account and what interest rate you're earning. The average is 0.09%. And then look at what the average credit card rate is. And that's 17%.
Yes.
So you're doubling your money. 72 divided by 0.09% is 800. Your money will double every 800 years. But the bank that is so happy to give you that credit card.
Here, take it,
especially
please.
when you're in college.
Yes.
72 divided by 17 is 4.6. So the bank's money is doubling every 4.6 years.
And then sometimes the interest rate is even higher.
Exactly.
And if you don't pay it off each month, they really are having a wonderful time with you.
Well, and even if you pay late, one of the, you know, when I talk to college students, I tell them paying late is the quickest way to ruin your credit score. So get on auto pay or put alarms in your cell phone, whatever it takes to make sure you never make another late payment.
Well, you think about how their late payment, sometimes the late payment, you may have a bill that's only $25. That's all you owe.
Right.
And you forget to pay it, or you're late paying it, and your charge for the late fee might be $35.
Yes.
Literally.
It is,
and
oftentimes.
If you talk about in the banking business, where if you have overdraft, you don't have overdraft protection for a check that may bounce.
Right.
I mean, I once had a conversation with a banker, just said, you know, that's just really, what you treat, how you treat consumers is just wrong. I said, it's just wrong, because it doesn't take that much for you to charge that kind of money. but it's all about, how they're making their money work for them.
I agree. So it's so important. If you understand these things, then you know what you're getting at the bank. And maybe you can shop around and find a bank that's not going to nickel and dime you over fees, that is going to be more customer friendly.
But the key thing is asking the questions and being educated and informed.
Yes.
And so people have to take that step to be informed and educated and do their due diligence to say, okay, I know maybe I don't handle money the way I should. Maybe I don't know enough about money management, but I can find someone who can help me, who has an expertise in that, someone like you or other people out there to say, I need some basic fundamentals of how I can handle my money more effectively, because what I'm doing now is not working. People need to be seeking that out. Women need to be seeking that out.
Yes. We recommend people educate themselves because there are a lot of great tools out there online. There are some great books that will help you, but also look for a financial professional or look for a financial coach who's going to give you tips, who's going to help you make adjustments, help you set your financial goal and do the things that you need to do to stay on track for that goal.
It's really finding people who help you, because you can't be an expert of everything. No. And when God gives you money, he wants you to be a good steward of it. And sometimes, I have some people that I know who, when they get money, they're just, as soon as they get it, it's like, it's spent. I'm like, what did you spend it on? Well, I bought this. Did you need it? Did you need it at this point in time? But it's like, I had it, so I wanted to do that. And then when you really need it, you don't have the money.
Right.
So it's really getting people to change their mindset about being a good steward, because if God can trust you with a little, he can give you more. But if he can't trust you with the little he gives you, why are you going to get more? So it's really stepping back to say, I want to become a better steward of the money that God gives me, because he'll trust me with more if I'm a good steward of what I have already.
Exactly. Doing that research and then really thinking about it. Is this something I want, or is this something I need? And if it's just something you want, and every now and then, that's okay. But really focused on what your needs are, what your family needs are, and what your family's financial goals are.
Yeah, because sometimes when you spend, people like to eat out. And even the quick service or fast food restaurants now are as expensive as the sit-down ones.
Yes.
And so you drive through, you're like, did I just drive through and pay $15?
Right.
And I just drove through.
Yeah.
I didn't even...
I check the receipt. What did I buy?
Yeah, it's true, because sometimes you think you bought something, and I've been to a restaurant once, a drive-through once, that I thought I paid for something, and then they charged me more, and I had to call back because they made a mistake.
Right.
That's why you check your receipts. Again, that's a good steward.
Yeah.
It's like when you purchase something to make sure that what you're paying for is what you paid, because sometimes they do make mistakes.
They do. They're human. But you got to check. You got to be on top of it.
So it's really just becoming mindful and says, I want to be a good steward. I want to know how to manage my money more effectively. I want to know how to make it grow so that I can live a comfortable life. So I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. I'm not having to, they say, rob Peter to pay Paul. We've been, some of us, I grew up sometimes where there was not a lot of money there. So, you got to figure out how to make it work.
Right.
And my mother did a wonderful job. And so she taught us good money management, but there were a lot of things that she didn't know that she couldn't teach us.
Right.
So it's important, as we think about now, they have people like you out here, and you can't be an expert sometimes at everything. So sometimes you have to hire people or work with someone, like you said, a financial coach,
right,
to help you navigate those areas that you're not as proficient in.
Right, and ask questions. Do interview people for the position to help you with your finances, just like you would for a doctor or a dentist or lawyer, whomever else, whatever professional you're going to look to help you. Interview them, ask your questions, and make sure that they're on the same page with you.
Make sure they even understand finances, because a lot of people are putting names to attach their names to certain things. They are expert in this. How long have you been doing it? Well, 6 months. And that doesn't mean that you're not an expert because you've done it 6 months. I'm not saying that. But the point is, if you've been doing it 6 months, you might not know as much as I know.
Right.
So it's important that we really, as you said, we basically investigate and make sure that people we're hiring to help us are equipped and qualified to do that. So when we come back, this has been good information. We come back, we're going to talk about those 7, I think you said the 7
money milestones.
7 money milestones that will help you. That's going to be good, 7 money milestones.
Yes.
So that's interesting. So people, again, need to know the importance. If you're watching tonight, you're watching not by accident. You probably need to look at your finances and say, oh, let me see, I need help. well, here's somebody who can help you to learn to work your finances. But if not, there's other people out there that can help you, because it's so important to become a good steward of what God is entrusting you with. So you're not watching it by accident. So take notes when we come back. We're going to learn about the 7
money milestones.
Money milestones to help you with your money, with your money. So we're going to go to the music again. So Key Music singing. So we're back now with Kim Scouller to talk more about money management, financial acumen. So talk about these 7 milestones.
So the 7 money milestones are the 7 components of every solid financial plan. So the first step, the first milestone, is financial education. Okay. That's just starting to educate yourself and continuing that financial education journey for the rest of your life. Always be learning. Mm-hmm. The second piece is putting proper protection in place to take care of you and your family in case anything were to happen to you or to happen to your income or your savings. The next piece is debt management. Mm-hmm. Debt management, eliminating that debt, bringing down your expenses, doing those things to get smarter about your debt. Next is an emergency fund. Putting 3 to 6 months of money away, 6 months of income or expenses set aside for emergencies only. Not for a retreat, or something special or vacation, but for emergencies.
So 6 months, because I thought at one point
3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. Okay.
3 to 6 months of income or expenses. And, a lot of people who did have an emergency fund in the pandemic really had to tap into that because they were underemployed or laid off or whatever. So an emergency fund is really important. And I'll tell you, Nancy, it is one of the most important things that people can do who are living paycheck to paycheck. Because if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you have an emergency, what do? You put it on a credit card.
Right.
And so you add another credit card bill, another minimum payment that is going to keep you strapped to that, living paycheck to paycheck. So creating that emergency fund is going to free you up over time from actually living paycheck to paycheck.
So quick question. So people who are living paycheck to paycheck, who really are, their income is limited, how do they begin the process of starting an emergency fund? Because they may say, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm basically have enough just to take care of this. How do they begin the process of putting something away? What do you suggest they do?
Well, it is about putting a little bit of money aside each week or each month. And if you look at what your expenses are, whether it's eating out, because it's so expensive now, whether it's, lattes, that's kind of my weakness, I'll admit it. But you go through and you start eliminating some things that are wants rather than needs. You will, and maybe you don't have a lot of those extra things in your life. And again, every now and then it's okay. But you really need to put money aside every week or every month and do it on a regular basis. Another thing to look at are subscription services.
Okay.
If you've got Hulu and Netflix and HBO Max and Prime and all of these services, they seem redundant to me. So look at your bank statement, look at your credit card statement and see what you're not using, what's redundant, what is really not necessary anymore. And you may say, well, gosh, that's like $5 a month. But add that up over a year's period, and then 2 years and then 3 years, then you're really creating a savings fund there, an emergency fund there. So look for those opportunities.
Because you say, even if you have Hulu, Netflix, all those, they do add up. It's $5 or $10. And for the most part, I at one point had Hulu, Netflix, Prime. I said, again, to your point, you have all these subscriptions and you start looking at stuff, okay, what do I need to get rid of?
Right.
And so I went through and got rid of Hulu because it's I don't watch it.
Right.
And if I got rid of Netflix, I'm kind of grandfathered in, so I have the really low price. They said, you go back and you come back, they say you're going to be paying 2 times that. So I'm I'll just stay with that.
Yes.
Because if I decide I want to come back 6 months from now, I'm going to pay twice as much what I'm paying right now.
Right.
No. And I do watch it from time to time. But again, I have cut out some subscriptions that I wasn't using. Because the point, you look at those things, people who have to have their lattes or their Starbucks or whatever it is they like to have every morning. That adds up. If you do that 2 or 3 days a week, that adds up. People, when they were going into the workplace, people who were going out to eat a lot, supposed to take their lunch.
Right.
So there are ways to look at how we can streamline some things if you want to do it.
Yes. Well, and it's all about getting educated. Not only educated about finances in general, but educated about your finances.
Right.
Where are you spending your money? So the next milestone is called increasing cash flow. And that is exactly that, understanding what money is coming into your household and what money is going out of your household and what's left over. And then looking at opportunities to increase the money coming in. You know, if you have a job, you have one stream of income. Are there other streams of income that you can open up for you and your family? Maybe it's a side gig. Maybe it's starting your own business. And looking at what you're spending your money on. Are there things that you can consolidate or get rid of?
Right.
Things that you don't really need. You know, can you increase the deductible on your car insurance to bring your car insurance premiums down?
Right.
Simple things like that. Then the 6th milestone is about building wealth. And this is the fun milestone because this is where you get to dream about the future.
It's like, oh, my bank account got all these zeros behind my.
Right, right. So it's, you know, is it retirement? Is it that dream vacation? Is it, you know, your child's wedding or their college education? What is it that you dream about for the future for you and your family? And that's where the build wealth milestone fits. And then the last milestone is protecting your wealth. And that has to do with putting an estate plan in place. You know, having a will, a financial power of attorney, having a healthcare directive and a HIPAA release. And under certain circumstances, especially if you have special needs children, you need to look at putting a trust in place. If you've got small children, you want to make sure you've got an estate plan in place so you identify for the probate court who you want to take care of your children if something were to happen to you.
So because I know there's a lot of people who don't have those things in place. Even I know when the pandemic started, there were some stats out that I don't remember what they were, but they talked about how many people didn't even have 3 months of income or didn't have like $1,000 saved or something like that. There was some alarming figure that I saw out there. People were surprised, but I'm like, really, why should people be surprised? Sometimes because of how we spend money.
Right. So the pandemic was a real wake-up call for a lot of people.
In a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways that, they thought, they were balancing everything, even though they were living paycheck to paycheck. But something like a pandemic happens, and maybe your job wasn't affected, but your kids are home.
Right.
And you've got to find childcare, or you've got to take off from work to take care of your children.
So it was a juggling act because so many women left the workplace during the pandemic. They called it a she session.
Yes, yes.
So many women left because they just couldn't juggle parenting, being a wife, different things, homeschooling, all those things. So they left the workplace. So the question is, how's that going to impact going forward? That's going to impact some things going forward.
Well, I think there's good news and bad news. Many women who did leave the traditional workforce during the pandemic made the decision to permanently leave the workforce.
Yes, they did.
And for some women who are still in the workforce, they are going to be behind when it comes to raises and promotions because they did have to take time off from work to take care of their kids. For women who decided not to go back, they're either enjoying being at home and taking care of their family, or they're starting their own business.
Yes.
They're, it's buying and selling online these days. Creating a beautiful website is easier than ever.
Yes.
So a lot of women and men are looking at, well, maybe I will start a business, something I've always wanted to do.
Now's the time.
Now's the time. Now is, the world is kind of in a transition. So this is the time.
So tell people how they can reach you. Want to make sure they know how to reach you. Give them your information now.
Okay. So my email address is kim.scouller. That's kim.scouller @wealthwave.com. WEALTHWAVE.com. So kim.scouller@wealthwave.com.
Okay, so that's how they can reach you. So take the next minute, because we're getting ready to wrap up this segment. Take the next minute and just encourage someone out there about money management.
So what I would just kind of summarize a lot of the things that we've talked about, that it's not your fault. It's not taught in school. Unfortunately, it's kind of up to us to take responsibility for our own financial education. There are great resources out there. It's not rocket science. Just spend the time getting to understand what basic financial concepts are and what you need for your financial plan. And then get in the habit of putting a little bit of money away, maybe once a week, once a month, whatever it is, just get in that habit.
Okay. Wow. So some simple things people can do and begin those simple steps. Sometimes the key to just making things happen is taking that first step.
Right.
Taking the first step to say, I didn't have 4 lattes this week. I had only 2.
Right.
So again, little steps, because sometimes, some people are hooked on things. It's like, this is like habitual. So
right.
all of a sudden, instead of doing 4, you do 2. That's, okay, I'm going to put this money in my little stash fund here. So it's beginning small, but just begin. So just want to thank you, Kim, for being here. Kim Scouller, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Talk about money management, financial acumen, because it's so important. So again, you got some great tips this morning, this evening, because I'm thinking these are great tips. And so I would encourage you, as you listen tonight, you got some ideas around some things you can do differently, some things you need to maybe curb. Look at those subscriptions. That's where a lot of stuff takes place. You have subscriptions to everything, magazines, all kinds of stuff. Sometimes, do you need all those things? Look at some areas where you can make some cutbacks and begin to take that money once you stop that subscription, put that in your savings plan. So we thank you again, Kim, for being with us. So thank you so much for tuning in for this segment. I know you were blessed. You got some money management tips that will help you.